So now we've taken a look at the best shows of the year. Let's talk about the worst. The worst TV shows of 2023. Not as many as per usual. There was only a couple of shows in particular on my honorable mentions list. The rest of the list, pretty much straightforward. Let's go briefly through the honorable mentions here. The first one I have here is Animal Control, which is that new show on Fox that came out during the spring with Joel McHale in it, where you have a group of animal control workers in Seattle, and you start to see their lives complicated by humans and not so much by animals. It felt like they were trying to create the next Brooklyn Nine-Nine with this, and me personally, I didn't think it worked. I didn't think it was all that funny. The characters in particular are not really all that interesting, at least in my opinion they aren't, but it did well enough to get a second season, so who knows? Maybe they'll turn it around, but I seriously doubt it. But Animal Control was one of the other. The other honorable mention I have on here is The Golden Bachelor, which is the older version of The Bachelor, if you will, with a 72-year-old restaurant retiree and a widow from Hudson, Indiana, who essentially is on the show he's got these other senior citizens that he's trying to end up marrying, which he actually will get married this week, I think. But I know a lot of people really like The Bachelor, which I don't know why, but it's just I've had a problem with The Bachelor for so many years now, because it feels like shows like this and other shows by Mike Fleece is just like this is a guy that's clearly trying to propel the idea that everything in a romantic comedy or everything in a fantasy story can happen in real life. And let's just have this, when they try so hard, they really try too damn hard to make everything look fascinating or fantastic. I always go back to that one time when The Bachelor had this contestant showed up in a dolphin costume, and anybody who would do that in real life would automatically be shunned for that. But no, on this show, it's funny, it's magical. It's just like, no, like this is why I hate reality TV so much, because it's not reality television. No matter what they tell you, nobody would do this type of stuff in reality television. And yeah, I guess you want to root for this guy to find the love of his life at his old age, but at the same time, it's still following the same concept as the other Bachelor shows, and I just can't do that to myself to really get behind this guy. Unfortunately, like it's just what it is. Like, it just really is where I'm at with these shows. So The Golden Bachelor is the other honorable mention on this list. So let's go ahead and get to the actual list itself. And starting off on here, we have number 10, the NBA in-season tournament, which I think is one of the dumbest ideas ever, because the whole concept of this is that let's have a championship within a championship is within a regular season. It's a new thing. It's something that it's going to be so groundbreaking and so unique. You watch this. I watched this thing this year, and basically what I saw was just another excuse for the Los Angeles Lakers to win a championship that really it's not worth it in the end. It's not really that special. Like, they won it against the Indiana Pacers, and the Pacers were not that great of a team to begin with. At least this season, they weren't. At least so far in these first couple of weeks of the season, they really weren't. But like as I'm recording this right now, the Pacers are at 17-14 on the season, and the Lakers are 17-16. I feel like this is something that they just put in there because these two teams aren't getting anywhere near a championship this season. Like, it just feels rather pointless. The whole concept of this just feels really, really pointless. And really, what's the outcome? What am I supposed to take away from this? Like, what is any NBA fan in particular supposed to take away from this? It's just like the courts look ridiculous. They look like the courts all look like something you would see on a Nickelodeon game show from the 1990s. And even those shows were much more fun in comparison to this. I never saw the real reason why to have an in-season tournament, and sure enough, I think a lot of people also did too. Nobody really got excited when the Lakers won, and they put that thing up. It's like, oh, we're gonna have a banner up in the Raptors of Staples Center, or Crypto Co Arena, I guess it's called now. I always remember it as the Staples Center, but yeah, we're gonna put a banner up there, and it's just like, why? Like, why do you want to celebrate this? Like, does the NBA really think that this is going to be something that's going to last forever? I certainly don't think it will. I think a lot of people would agree that it probably isn't going to be worth it when it's all said and done. But it just didn't do anything to the brand name. It just felt like a pointless extension of something that really does not need to be there. It's probably going to be there again, mostly because somebody is going to put. If these two teams aren't going to be anywhere near a championship by the time the season ends in the summertime. That's just my take on it. But so the NBA in-season tournament's my number 10 worst TV show of 2023. Number 9 is the Game Show Show, which is a documentary that came out in the summer about the history of game shows, and it started off promising. It started off promising the ideas of how, game shows, the history of game shows. Like, you look at shows mentioning, like, different origins of different game shows, like Jeopardy! And Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And then they tackle ideas about, like, controversial game moments in game show history, like the 21 scandal or the Pressure Lux scandal, those type of things. It was going good, and then, slowly but surely, once they got into like the second half of its run, they started adding reality shows into this, and it's just like reality shows and game shows are not the same thing. I'm sorry, they're just not. Like, I don't understand why we're throwing reality shows in the same category as game shows. Yeah, they're competitions, but you know what? Game shows are much more fun than reality shows. I don't hate people like I have. It's like I hate people whenever I watch these terrible reality shows. Like, I'm not. It's like when I watch a game show, I want to watch somebody win a prize. I don't want to watch 6 weeks of somebody acting like a jackass and hoping that it's going to boost their careers. And like, ever since they started moving into reality show territory, it's just like this show really lost the whole motive of what it was trying to do. It felt like it was trying to continue that argument that reality shows are the same as game shows, which they're not. They're just not. Like, game shows are fun. Reality shows are not. And I don't care what anybody says. I'm that person that really does not believe that game shows and reality shows are the same thing. And the fact that this show tried to make the argument that that's the case, that just really turned me off of it pretty quickly. And, that really let me down big time. The Game Show, number 9 on the list. Coming in at number 8, Crapopolis, which was a show that, those shows that show that they were talking about for a number of years that was going to be a show that was completely made out of NFTs and the blockchain and all that type of stuff? Well, it's finally here, almost 4 years after they announced that it was going to be coming. And, they basically already renewed the show for 3 seasons before the first episode even aired. Like, it just... First of all, NFTs are not a thing that's going to become a thing, so stop trying to make it that. And, like I said, they renewed the show for 3 seasons before the first episode even aired. So you have to come out of the show right from the get-go with something really good, and it's just not there, man. This is just a show that is so lifeless. It's so boring. I don't care if it has Dan Harmon as the creator on it. I mean, yeah, he made Community, he made Rick and Morty, but those shows were much more fun and weren't relying on a novelty to sell itself, and it wasn't selling out future seasons before the first episode even aired. Like, it's a mess of a show. It wastes so many good, talented people that are involved in this cast. And the jokes aren't funny. The characters are not interesting whatsoever. The fact that they're trying to sell this as the next big thing, when it's just not. It's just not worth it in the end. And it's a really bad show. It definitely does not deserve to be in the same category as some of Fox's other animated shows, which are still watchable after all these years. And even the new ones that they put on as of late have been good shows. But this is the one they put all the money into, so they're going to cram this down your throat until they convince you it's a good show, which it isn't. It's never going to be a good show. I'm sorry to say that, but it's never going to be a good show. So, Crapopolis. It's the name certainly describes the show. It's a piece of crap. So number 7 on my list of the worst TV shows of the year, Not Dead Yet. This is a show that starred Gina Rodriguez from Jane the Virgin, and it follows her as an accident-prone American newspaper reporter who left her last job 5 years ago to move to the United Kingdom with a lover. She returns to the U.S. when the relationship ends and tries to resume her journalism career as a newly single woman. The woman is assigned to write obituaries for a new employer and begins to encounter ghosts of the people whose obituaries she is writing, with only whom she can see and hear. The ghosts begin to have conversations with her and offer advice on how to rebuild her life, while also helping to write their obituaries by telling her their stories. The ghosts then disappear after their obituaries are published. So, Seems like ABC is trying to rip off the success of Ghost, which is a far superior show. And Gina Rodriguez is a great actress who can make this work. It's not a bad idea at all, just not the best execution in general. It's just not really all that funny. Like, the writing is not that great. The acting is okay, I guess, but it certainly could be a whole lot better. There's a lot of good talent involved in the show. Brad Garrett's also going to be in the show in the new season. You got Hannah Simone from New Girl, Lauren Ash, Martin Mull, Thelma Hopkins, Rhea Perlman show up in the show every once in a while. There's a phenomenal cast of this show, but it's just not it's just not working well, and you can just tell that they're ripping off the concept of Ghost, which does that concept a lot better, and it has a good idea to it, but it's just not funny. It's just not worth it, and it's a shame because the people involved in this really are worthy of better material than this, and I mean, hopefully the next season will make it better, but I don't know. To me, it just didn't work. So, Not Dead Yet. I believe we're at 7 now. Yeah, number 7, my least favorite show of 2023. Coming in at number 6, the NFL. Just the NFL in general. Like, it's not fun to watch anymore. And this season in particular really is showing it because of a number of different reasons. One, too many lopsided games. Too many games where one team is clearly doing better than the other team is. Too many times when the referees get involved in the game and it completely ruins the ebb and flow. Too many times when the NFL is trying to create the next big viral thing. Like everything from Taylor Swift to the Chargers girl to like all these people that are trying to make it to the next meme. It's just completely, it's just out of it. And like, it doesn't help that you have all these teams that have been notoriously bad for so many years that they're trying to continue to push as, okay, these are the futures. Like Baltimore's finally going to go all the way. Dallas is going to go all the way. Cleveland's finally going to go all the way. It's like, what makes you think that this year is going to be any different? Oh yeah, because half the quarterbacks in the league are injured or out for the season. But like, okay, so what? Like, it really shouldn't matter. Like, there's no reason why Kansas City should not be in the top of the playoff picture, and instead have to be locked into a 3rd seed. Like, there's no reason why teams is like. And another thing that's wrong with the NFL, they overhype everything. Like the trades are getting ridiculously more lopsided, and they're not even good trades when they actually matter. Like Aaron Rodgers, they made a big deal about Aaron Rodgers coming to the New York Jets, and what did they really do? And what has he really done? 4 snaps, season's over, but they kept having this idea that, oh, he's going to come back if the Jets make a playoff run. We're going to push Zach Wilson, get us to the playoffs. We're going to keep pushing you to make the playoffs. You know, that's not how you help a team succeed. Like, Russell Wilson finally was doing good for the Denver Broncos this year because he had a good coach. And then they just decide, you know what, Russell, if you're not gonna get rid of this injury clause, we're just gonna bench you for the rest of the season, even though we're still very much in the playoff hunt and could still win the AFC West at this point. Yeah, you're not gonna play the rest of the season. So and also better yet, we're just gonna bench you. Like, Seahawks completely fleeced the Broncos, and like the Cleveland Browns. You know why they're in the playoffs now? Not because of Deshaun Watson. Because Joe Flacco got off his ass, and for the last 4 weeks, he's been the one thing that's been carrying the Cleveland Browns all the way through. It's just like nothing about the NFL makes sense anymore, and it just feels like you cannot tell me that a lot of what's going on in here is rigged. And on top of that, the shows like the people on the different networks like Amazon and NBC, they're just getting more and more obnoxious. Like, I used to love Maria Taylor, but every time I see her on Football Night in America, she's just trying way too hard to be like relatable. She's trying to pick something not because of how good the team is, but because she interviewed somebody on there. It doesn't make any sense. Coming in at number 5 on my worst TV shows of the year, Secret Invasion. You know, even somebody like me who's been one of the biggest defenders of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the longest period of time, I mean, talk about one of the biggest disappointments of not just the year, but maybe of all time. This is probably the bottom of the barrel for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this is coming from somebody who has been... I've been a fan of the MCU right from the start, but man, they dropped the ball on this one big time. I mean, Samuel Jackson's the only redeemable factor with the show, but then again, he's Nick Fury. He's always going to be badass no matter what you put him in. I mean, some of the other casting in here is okay, but most of it isn't great. But when the show really keels over is in everything else. The writing is so badly executed, it actually creates a ton of plot holes within the MCU. The visuals are shockingly abysmal. It results into using an intro created by AI of all things. in a year where AI almost destroyed Hollywood pretty much, they use it here and it looks horrible. A show with a budget of over $200 million should not look this bad, and yet somehow it does. Like, this was supposed to be the massive event they've been setting up as far back as Far From Home, and so 4 years have built up to this. And this is the end result. This is a massive fail on everything. Marvel, Disney, everybody involved. This is shockingly one of the worst shows for just how much it absolutely disappointed everybody. All the high expectations it was setting itself up for just out the door. It's a mess. It's a disaster. I could not believe how bad this show was. I mean, it's really that bad. So yeah, Secret Invasion, number 5 on the list. Number 4, Saint X, which is a show that was on Hulu. You have a story it's based off of a novel. It's a psychological drama following the story of this woman who, on a dangerous mission to find out the truth of what happened to her older sister, who was brutally murdered and raped on an idealistic trip to the Caribbean 20 years earlier. Trailers look pretty good. The idea sounded pretty cool, and it ends up being one of the worst things you will ever see on TV this year. I mean, this is about as tedious and pretentious as a show as you can get. It keeps building and building to this big payoff to the point where you finally get to see what happens to this girl, and all you can think to yourself is, that was it? This is what you made me waste 8 hours of my life building up to? Like, Saint X is that show. This show that thinks it's so important. It wants to be the next big thing, and it just fails on every single level. The storytelling is a mess. The acting with nepotism at its worst. I mean, David Duchovny's daughter sucks in this. She's horrible. The mystery isn't that exciting. The twists aren't great. It's just a disaster of a show that fails to deliver on everything that it promises from that trailer, and just, it pulls the rug on you. It pulls the rug on you badly, and it just falls apart at the worst possible time. What a horrible show this was. Saint X, terrible, terrible show. Avoid it like the plague. So that brings us to number 3 on the list of my least favorite TV shows of the year, True Lies. We still can't put the original True Lies on Blu-ray or DVD or 4K yet, even though technically we are doing that now. But yeah, you know that show, you know that movie that revolved around a spy who basically covered up his life with, and his wife never knew about it until a situation came where she basically had to find out about it. Well, CBS basically turned that classic James Cameron movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis and turned it into this. A generic-ass procedural action series. They pulled the same bullshit that they did with Rush Hour 6 years ago. They took a great movie. Well, Rush Hour's not a great movie. It's a good movie, but they took a great movie by James Cameron and turned it into a bland-ass procedural that just takes all the charm and the uniqueness that made it stand out and just throws it away. It's just every other network TV procedural, and it's not even one of the good ones. This show is awful, and it's not the actor's fault. Steve Howey was on Shameless. You know, Ginger Gonzaga is a great character actress, and it's got Beverly D'Angelo in it, for God's sakes. I mean, it's even not Matt Nix's fault. This is the guy that made Burn Notice. He's made some underrated gems, like Billy Crystal's The Comedians and Fox's The Gifted, which was one of those X-Men spin-offs they did. But CBS should have never had their hands on this whatsoever, because if we're being honest, this turned out to be as bad as it sounded. You don't get leads like these two who are you don't get 2 leads like this who are nowhere near the acting chops of Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis and their roles from the original movie. And all you do is take their names and put them on 2 bland-ass characters that are not written well at all and have no chemistry to them whatsoever. What hurts the most about True Lies is that's something that you need to think about here. Like I said, we were waiting years and years to get more from True Lies. They've been talking about a sequel for decades. The film had yet to get a proper Blu-ray release up until they just announced it a couple months ago. We finally get something new from True Lies after almost 30 years. And this was the best they could come up with? You got 2 actors that can be good in other works, but they can't play these characters anywhere near as good as what Arnold and Jamie Lee did. They turned this cool, slick-ass action comedy from James Cameron and made it into a generic, bland procedural action series. We waited 30 years for this. This may be the worst thing that they've done to a movie. And this is worse than what they did to Rush Hour. It's that bad. Like, it amazes me looking back on what they did with Lethal Weapon over at Fox and thinking, how the hell did that work? And it actually not only holds up, but it's actually really damn good. All 3 seasons are legitimately good. They found a way to take one of the great action movie franchises of all time and gave it new life and a distinctive modern look for a new generation that makes it stand out. True Lies has none of that. It's a shame that this show is around because it's an insult to James Cameron's movie. It's not clever. It's not slick. It's not awesome. It's just bland mesh. And CBS probably realized they fucked up big time because they axed this thing pretty quickly. This is easily one of the worst shows of 2023, and it's not even close. So yeah, True Lies definitely up there with the year's worst shows. Moving on to number 2, another one of those shows that was highly talked about by HBO, and not for the best reasons. The Idol. Sam Levinson's follow-up to Euphoria. You have a story about a pop idol who resolves to reclaim her title as the sexiest pop star in the United States after her last tour was canceled following a nervous breakdown. She begins a complex relationship with this guy named Tedros, played by The Weeknd, a self-help guru with the head of a contemporary cult. And boy, this is a show that could easily kill the careers of both Sam Levinson and The Weeknd. The Weeknd is an awesome artist, a music artist, but man, this was bad. This was unbearable. Like, even somebody like me, who is more lenient on stuff like this, I cannot look at this and say this is a good show. This is an abysmal mess of a show that just does not work. The Weeknd is trying his hardest here to make this work as an actor, but he's just not worth it. He's not even trying in this show. And Lily Rose Depp, who, again, nepotism, Johnny Depp's daughter. I mean, she's not that great of an actress in here. Like, kind of going back to something we talked about in other things, like, you really need good chemistry with your 2 leads to really get a show like this going the way that it should. But you just don't have it here. It's just it's a boring show. There's no purpose to it whatsoever. You really never get the sense that this was going anywhere right as we get to the last episode of the show, which I guess was supposed to be part of a 6-episode run, but they cut it down to 5 episodes because maybe the people who saw it looked at this and said, "Oh my God, what the hell were we thinking?" Like, again, this is a show that could have easily killed the careers of both Sam Levinson and The Weeknd, which I hope it doesn't kill The Weeknd's career, and I hope it doesn't kill Sam Levinson's career because they've done so much better works in the long run. But The Idol was just a mess, just really, really bad show. Really horrible show. Definitely the second worst show of the year, but that's nothing compared to the number 1 worst show of 2023. And I'm, of course, talking about a show that came very early in the year, was heavily criticized right from the get-go. That show is, of course, Velma. Velma, if you don't know the story, is that this takes place in an alternate universe. It serves as an alternate universe origin story for Mystery Inc., pitching it as a love quadrangle between them. It focuses mainly on Velma Dinkley as she tries to solve the mystery regarding the disappearance of her mother, as well as the numerous murders of local teenage girls. So, I'm not gonna lie, I was just like everybody else when I first saw those trailers, and I just thought how cringeworthy and unfunny those trailers were. I thought this was going to be terrible right from the get-go, but I had to really go into it, giving it a fair shot. Like, it's like what Roger Ebert used to say about critiquing movies. You have to give a movie its day in court, and rightfully so. I had to give this a fair chance, so I finally did it. I went through the entire first season, giving it the benefit of the doubt, and I still hated it. From the very first episode, the humor and the characters are just so detestable and so unlikable on so many levels. There's nothing wrong with doing a show differently or doing something different, but when it fails miserably, a show like this is the end result. And let me just say right off the bat, I don't hate Mindy Kaling. I'm not on the let's hate Mindy Kaling train because she's been involved in a lot of good stuff, and she has been involved in a lot of good stuff. The Mindy Project was great. The Office was great. How many good movies was she in before this? Like, she's been in behind some bad stuff too. Like A Wrinkle in Time was not that great, but I'm not getting all on her. I just feel like this was just not as well thought as they originally intended. And just one of the big problems from the show right from the get-go is that it feels like the creators of the show are just fucking with people and trolling them because no competent writer would have written something so unfunny or creative whatsoever. I mean, there was a picture that went out when this show came around where you have the Shaggy in this, played by Sam Richardson, who's a black character, with this woman, and somebody put this picture on social media and said, Oh, the following episodes get so much worse. Meet Scoob. Fellow food reviewer Norville decides to dates to get over Velma. Yeah, Scooby with an I. Evil finds a way. That was a picture that was on social media, and this was a couple weeks into the show's run. And a lot of people, including myself, really thought this was something the show was going to do. But turns out that wasn't the case at all. It was basically a completely new character they created for the show. But honestly, when I saw that, and after watching the show, would you have guessed that? Would you have been that surprised if they really did go that route, and somebody found out it was leaked and just changed it later on in the production? Like, it really would not surprise me if that was the case. And this is just a bad show. Like, Velma is a show that just doesn't have any warrant to it at all. It's a mostly misguided mess of a show with some really lazy writing, some really bad cringe comedy, a voice cast that deserves way better than this. And it's not fun at all. I mean, if the best thing I could say about it is that it's not Fairview bad, because Fairview was a horrible show that came out last year. But then again, no animated show is Fairview bad, but it isn't just good. It just isn't good. It's one of the worst TV shows of the year. Like, it may very well be, it is very much the worst show of the year when it's all said and done. No show this year that I saw comes to the levels of horridness that this show did. This is just a colossal misfire on so many levels. And it got another season because people watched it so much that Warner Brothers took it as, people like this, that means we gotta do another season. And like, I'm not gonna watch it because, like, I already saw everything I needed to see with the first season. I don't need to torture myself with this again. This is a bad show. Like, Velma really is the worst show of 2023. And at this point, it might very, very well be one of the worst shows of the decade. When 2030 comes around and we're putting out the worst of the decade, this may definitely be on that list. It's that bad of a show.